I, Lily, an elegant European-American wife, set off on an exotic journey. In the ancient town, I met the mysterious man Alex, and I was fascinated by the depth of his eyes. Asking for directions started our story, but I had no idea that it would be an emotional adventure, and the gears of fate were quietly turning. Since that unexpected encounter with Alex on the streets of the old town, my life has quietly changed. Alex seemed to know the town like the back of his hand, and at his enthusiastic invitation, I foolishly agreed to his proposal to explore the town together. Alex led me into a narrow but charming alley where the sun shone through the gaps between the old buildings, casting dappled shadows. He walked briskly and confidently, and I followed behind him, my gaze unconsciously drawn to his upright figure. He turned to me and gave a bright smile, a smile like the warm spring sun that instantly dispelled the slight unease in my heart caused by the unfamiliar surroundings. "Lily, look here," Alex said, pointing to a colorful mural on the wall. The mural depicted historical scenes of the town, with vividly colored and lifelike characters. Alex began to tell me the story behind the mural. His voice was low and full of magnetism, and every word seemed to have a magic that transported me to that distant era. I listened quietly, occasionally asking questions, and he always answered patiently, his eyes shining with wisdom. As time passed, our conversation became more and more frequent. I discovered that Alex not only had an in-depth knowledge of the town's history and culture, but also had unique insights into the fields of art and music. We were in the town square, listening to the street performers playing beautiful music. Alex hummed the melody softly, and his voice was like music to my ears, intoxicating me. At that moment, I forgot that I was far away in a foreign country and that I was married. I just immersed myself in the beautiful time I spent with Alex. In the evening, Alex took me to the seaside in the town. The sunset's afterglow was reflected on the sea, sparkling and breathtakingly beautiful. We strolled along the coastline, the sand beneath our feet was fine and soft. Alex suddenly stopped and took an exquisite shell out of his pocket and handed it to me. "Lily, this shell is for you, just like you, beautiful and unique," he said with a gentle and sincere voice, and my cheeks couldn't help but blush slightly. I took the shell and held it carefully in the palm of my hand, as if it were a precious gift. At that moment, I looked up at Alex, and his eyes were full of deep affection. It was a kind of passionate emotion that I had never seen in my husband's eyes. My heart beat involuntarily faster, and an inexplicable feeling quietly grew in my heart. At night, the town was enveloped in a blanket of twinkling lights, making it look especially romantic. Alex took me to an open-air restaurant, where we sat by the window and enjoyed the local cuisine. Soft music played in the restaurant, creating a warm and pleasant atmosphere. Alex poured a glass of red wine for me, raised his glass, and said with a smile, "Lily, cheers to our encounter." I raised my glass as well, lightly clinking it with his. The mellow aroma of the wine spread in my mouth, and my heart was filled with sweetness. After dinner, we continued to stroll through the streets of the town. The moonlight was like water, showering down on us. Alex suddenly reached out and gently grasped my hand. My body trembled slightly, but I didn't break free. His hand was warm and strong, and my heart fell along with it. We just walked hand in hand in the night of the town, as if the whole world was just the two of us. In the following days, Alex and I were inseparable. We went hiking together, watched the sunrise and sunset together, and chatted in the town's cafes. Every time I was with him, I felt an unprecedented happiness and contentment. I was lost in his gentleness, and every glance and word of his was like magic, which made me unable to extricate myself. However, while enjoying the sweetness, a trace of unease began to grow in my heart. I am well aware of my married status, and this emotion with Alex is not permitted by morality. But I cannot control my heart, and I am falling deeper and deeper. I try to remind myself to stay alert and return to my original life, but whenever I see Alex's affectionate eyes, my resolve will waver. One night, we were walking in the town park. Alex suddenly stopped and gently embraced me in his arms. His breathing was rapid, and his eyes were full of longing. Lily, I like you. I've liked you since the first time I saw you, he said in a low, firm voice. My heart suddenly lost its beat, and I knew I liked him too, but I was afraid to respond to his feelings. Alex, we can't do this. I'm married. I can't betray my husband. I tried to keep my voice calm, but my heart was full of struggle. Alex listened to what I said, and a flash of disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he didn't give up. Lily, I know your concerns, but I don't care. I just know that I want to be with you. His voice was full of persistence. At that moment, I felt unbearable pain. I was torn between love and responsibility, and I didn't know how to choose. I liked Alex, and he brought me happiness and passion like no one else ever had, but I couldn't forget my husband or our marriage. I tried to push Alex away, but he held me even tighter. Lily, give me a chance to prove my love for you, he said, his voice tinged with pleading. My heart was torn between pain and joy. In the end, I didn't have the courage to push him away. I knew I had fallen into this forbidden love and couldn't extricate myself. And the danger was creeping up on me. I didn't know what the future held for me. But at the moment, I could only indulge in my feelings for Alex and enjoy this fleeting sweetness. In the following days, Alex and I became increasingly intimate. We were like a couple in love, enjoying the sweetness of love to the fullest. But there was always a voice inside me reminding me that this happiness was not real and was based on betrayal. I became afraid of being discovered by my husband and afraid of losing everything I had. One day, I received a call from an unknown number in the restaurant. When I answered, there was a woman's voice on the other end. Her voice was cold and sharp. Lily, I know about you and Alex. If you don't want your husband to know, you'd better stay away from Alex. I heard this voice and my heart immediately tightened, and an ominous feeling welled up in my heart. I didn't know who this woman was or why she knew about Alex and me. But I knew that this forbidden love might soon come to an end, and I would face a huge crisis. I tried to ask Alex who this woman was, but he seemed a little panicked. Lily, don't believe what she says. She's talking nonsense. Alex's eyes revealed a trace of unease. But I could no longer completely trust him as I had before. My heart was full of doubts, and I began to waver in this relationship. Despite this, I could not easily sever my relationship with Alex. We continued this dangerous romance, but a shadow always hung over my heart. I did not know where this emotional adventure would lead. But I knew that I could not turn back, and I could only go on until the truth was revealed. As time passed, the relationship between Alex and I became more and more complicated. We were sweet at times, but we also fought a lot. I began to realize that this relationship was not as simple as I had imagined. Alex seemed to be hiding some secrets, and these secrets could cause me great harm. But I was unable to extricate myself, still immersed in this forbidden love, unable to see the path ahead. Finally, on a stormy night, Alex confessed something to me. He told me that he had a failed marriage in the past and that his ex-wife had caused him great harm. He said that the reason he liked me was because I made him feel warmth and happiness that he had not felt in a long time. As I listened to his words, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. I sympathized with what he had gone through, but I also knew that this was no reason to continue this forbidden love. Just as I was about to propose ending the relationship again, Alex suddenly hugged me tightly. Lily, don't leave me. I really can't live without you. His voice was full of despair. I couldn't hold back the tears in his arms. I didn't know how to choose, whether to continue this relationship full of danger and conflict, or resolutely return to my original life. On this stormy night, my heart was filled with pain and confusion. I knew I had to make a decision, otherwise I would be plunged into even deeper pain. And this decision would change my life forever. But at the moment, I felt utterly lost, not knowing which way to go. After countless days and nights of struggle and pain, I finally made up my mind and decided to have a serious talk with Alex. I knew that we couldn't continue like this. We sat down in a quiet corner of the town. I looked at Alex and said seriously, Alex, we can't go on like this. I can't betray my husband. I have to get back to my life. Alex listened to my words with pain and despair in his eyes. Lily, are you really going to leave me? Is the relationship between us really that fragile? There was a hint of anger in his voice. I looked at him, my heart full of reluctance. Alex, I like you, that's true. But I can't forget my responsibilities. I can't hurt my husband. I tried to keep my voice firm. Alex was silent for a long time and finally nodded. Lily, I respect your decision, but I hope you know that my love for you is true. If you ever change your mind, I will always be waiting for you. His voice was full of helplessness. I looked at him and was moved. I knew that he really loved me, but our relationship was destined to have no outcome. We sat there silently, neither of us saying a word. A sad atmosphere filled the air. I didn't know how to comfort Alex, nor did I know how to comfort myself. I knew that this would be the last time Alex and I would sit quietly together like this. Eventually, we stood up and prepared to say goodbye. Alex gave me a gentle hug and then turned and walked away. I looked at his back, and tears once again blurred my vision. I knew that this foreign love affair, full of temptation and pain, was finally over. But I also knew that this experience would become an unforgettable memory in my life. After parting with Alex, I trudged back to the hotel room where I was temporarily staying. Everything in the room looked so familiar, yet also incredibly foreign to me. I sat by the bed, clutching the seashell Alex had given me in my hands, as tears flowed unstoppably down my face. Bits and pieces of my time with him kept popping up in my mind, and those sweet memories were like sharp knives, piercing my heart. I knew I had to get myself together and get back to my old life as soon as possible. I took a deep breath, stood up, and started packing. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. I picked it up and saw my husband's name on the screen. My heart tightened. After a moment of hesitation, I pressed the answer button. Lily, how are you enjoying yourself over there? My husband's familiar voice came over the phone with a hint of concern. Hearing his voice, my heart was filled with mixed emotions, and for a moment I didn't know how to reply. After a long while, I managed to force a smile and say, well, it's not bad. The scenery here is beautiful, and I'm having a good time. My husband didn't seem to notice my unease and continued, that's good. I was worried that you wouldn't be used to being here alone. By the way, when are you coming back? I already miss you. Hearing my husband say that he missed me, I felt full of guilt. I bit my lip and said, I'll be back in a few days. Take care of yourself while I'm gone. After hanging up the phone, I sat down on the bed, feeling weak and full of self-blame and pain. I thought about the bits and pieces of my past with my husband, and those good memories came flooding back. I realized that during this time in a foreign country, I had almost forgotten about my husband and our relationship. In order to get myself out of this relationship as soon as possible, I decided to end my trip early and return to my husband as soon as possible. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and went to the airport. On the way to the airport, I felt exceptionally heavy-hearted. Looking out the window at the familiar yet strange streets, I had mixed feelings. After arriving at the airport, I checked in and sat in the waiting room waiting to board the plane. Just then, my phone suddenly rang again. I took out my phone and saw it was an unfamiliar number, and my heart suddenly tightened. After a moment of hesitation, I answered the phone. Lily, do you think you can get rid of me like this? A woman's voice came from the other end of the line, the same woman who had warned me before. I was shocked and asked, who are you? What do you want? The woman sneered and said, it doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I know everything about you and Alex. If you don't want your husband to know, you'd better do what I say. Filled with fear and anger, I said, what do you want? I've already decided to break off ties with Alex. What more do you want? The woman laughed heartily after hearing my words and said, break off ties? It's not that simple. Do you think you can just say you're breaking off ties? I'm telling you, Alex won't let you off that easily. As I listened to the woman's words, I felt a wave of despair in my heart. I didn't know why this woman knew so much about Alex and me, or what her real intentions were. But I knew that I was in big trouble. Just as I was at a loss for what to do, the woman continued, tell you what, if you give me some money, I'll keep this secret for you. Otherwise, I'll tell your husband about you and Alex. Hearing the woman's demand, I suddenly understood her intentions. It turned out that she wanted money. I said angrily, "This is blackmail, and I won't pay you." After hearing my words, the woman snorted and said, "You'd better think about it. If you don't pay me, I guarantee you'll regret it." With that, the woman hung up the phone. I held the phone in my hand, my hands trembling. I didn't know what to do, and my heart was filled with fear and helplessness. Just then, the announcement came over the loudspeaker that boarding had begun. I took a deep breath, stood up, and dragged my luggage towards the boarding gate. During the boarding process, I kept thinking about what the woman had said. I knew that I had to come up with a solution as soon as possible, otherwise my marriage and life would face a huge crisis. After boarding the plane, I sat in my seat, looking out the window at the scenery, feeling extremely confused. I didn't know how I would face my husband when I got home, nor did I know how to deal with things with Alex. I just knew that my life had been completely disrupted by this affair. After the plane took off, I closed my eyes and tried to calm myself down. I told myself that I had to be strong and find a way to solve this problem. During the flight, I spent the next few hours thinking about how to deal with this. Finally, as the plane was about to land, I made a decision. I decided to go home first and confess everything to my husband. I knew that only by being honest could we truly solve the problem. Although I was afraid that my husband would leave me because of it, I also knew that hiding it would only make the problem worse. I believed that as long as we truly loved each other, we would be able to get through this difficult time. After getting off the plane, I took a taxi home. As soon as I opened the door, I saw my husband anxiously waiting for me on the sofa. When he saw me, he immediately stood up and came to meet me. "Lily, you're finally back. I was so worried about you," he said, hugging me tightly. I felt my husband's warm embrace and my heart was filled with guilt. I gently pushed my husband away, looked him in the eyes and said, "Honey, I have something to tell you." My husband looked at me, seemed to sense something was wrong, nodded and said, "Okay, go ahead, I'm listening." I took a deep breath and told my husband everything about how I met Alex in a foreign country, how we got to know each other and fell in love, and about the threats from that woman. As my husband listened, his face grew more and more unpleasant. After I finished, my husband was silent for a long time and finally said, "Lily, do you know what you've done? You've betrayed our marriage, and you've let me down beyond belief." Hearing my husband's words, my heart was filled with pain. I knew that my actions had caused my husband tremendous harm. I cried and said, "Honey, I know I was wrong, and I really regret it. I was just confused for a moment, and I never wanted to hurt you. Please forgive me and give me a chance. I promise I will never make this mistake again." My husband looked at me with pain and disappointment in his eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, "Lily, I need time to think about it." With that, my husband turned around and walked into the room, closing the door behind him. I stood there, tears streaming down my face. I knew that my marriage was facing a huge crisis, and I didn't know if my husband would ever forgive me. In the following days, my husband remained cold and distant. He rarely spoke to me and always stayed in his room alone. I watched my husband suffer and felt full of self-reproach and guilt. I wanted to make up for my mistakes in every way possible, but I didn't know where to start. One night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I thought about all the little things I had done with my husband and the good times we had spent together. I realized that I couldn't lose my husband and I couldn't lose our home. So I decided to apologize to my husband again and ask for his forgiveness. I gently walked into my husband's room and saw him sitting by the bed, looking at our wedding photo. I walked over to him, sat down next to him and said, "Honey, I know I was wrong and I really regret it. I hope you can forgive me and give me a chance to start over again. I promise that I will love you well and cherish our marriage in the future." My husband looked at me, and the pain in his eyes seemed to ease a little. He sighed and said, "Lily, I know you regret what you did now, but do you know how much pain you have caused me? I always thought our marriage was happy, but you have made me doubt everything." I cried and said, "Honey, I know I've let you down, but please believe me, I really was confused. I will prove my determination with my actions in the future, and I will make you believe in me again and fall in love with me again." My husband looked at me, and after a long silence, he finally nodded and said, "Okay, Lily, I'll give you a chance. But remember, if you make the same mistake again, I won't forgive you." Hearing my husband's words, I was filled with joy and gratitude. I hugged my husband tightly and said, "Thank you, honey. I will definitely cherish this opportunity." From then on, I began to work hard to make up for my mistakes and work hard to manage our marriage. I hoped that through my own efforts, I could bring back the happiness and beauty of our marriage. However, I knew that things were not that simple. The threat from that woman still hung over me like a sword, and I didn't know when it would fall. I must find a way to resolve this issue, otherwise my marriage with my husband will never truly be at peace. So I began to secretly investigate the identity of that woman, hoping to find a way to deal with it and get rid of this trouble once and for all. Back in the hotel room, I felt as if all the strength had been sucked out of me, and I collapsed onto the soft bed. The room was filled with a faint, unfamiliar scent, mixed with the lingering smell of being with Alex, which made my thoughts even more chaotic. I looked at the ceiling, and the scene of my parting with Alex kept playing in my mind. His eyes full of pain and despair, and his words of helplessness stung my heart over and over again. I knew that I had made a seemingly correct decision to return to my old life and uphold my responsibilities to my husband, but at this moment, the reluctance and pain in my heart surged like a tidal wave, almost drowning me. In the following days, I wandered aimlessly around the town. Every place Alex and I had been to seemed to still be filled with our laughter and joy, and there was his shadow in every corner. Passing by the open-air restaurant, I felt as if I could see us raising our glasses together to celebrate our encounter. His gentle smile and affectionate eyes made me stop in my tracks. "Lily," a familiar voice suddenly interrupted my thoughts. I turned my head and saw Alex's friend Tom. Tom is a warm and outgoing person, and I have met him a few times during my time with Alex. "Tom, hello." I forced a smile and greeted him. Tom looked at me. His eyes seemed to carry a hint of sympathy and understanding. "I heard about you and Alex. He is not doing well." My heart tightened. I'm also very sad, but I have to do this." Tom nodded. "I understand your choice, Lily. But Alex really loves you. He has never treated someone as seriously as he did this time. His past made him close his heart, and it wasn't until you appeared that he felt love again." Listening to Tom's words, my heart was touched once again. I remembered Alex's confession of his failed marriage and his pained expression. I knew that he was truly hurt, and I chose to leave just when he had just reopened his heart. "Tom, I love him too, but I can't betray my husband," I said, my voice trembling a little. "I have my responsibilities." Tom was silent for a while, and then he said, "Lily, I'm not here to persuade you to go back to Alex. I just hope you can understand that love and responsibility are not always easy to distinguish. The relationship between you and Alex may be an arrangement of fate. But no matter what decision you make, I hope you can be happy." This encounter with Tom made me struggle even more. After returning to my room, I lay in bed for a long time, unable to sleep. I kept asking myself, have I really done the right thing? If I chose to stay with Alex, would I really be happy? But if I went back to my husband, would my heart really be at peace? As the days passed, the day I was scheduled to leave the town drew nearer and nearer. But my mood grew heavier and heavier, and every minute and every second felt like torture. I began to fear facing my husband, to fear seeing his eyes full of trust, because I knew that I had betrayed that trust. Finally, on the night before I left, I received a text message from Alex. It was just a few simple words. "Lily, I know you're leaving tomorrow. I don't want to pressure you, but I still want to tell you that I will always wait for you. Whenever you change your mind, I will be here." Looking at this text message, my tears once again welled up. I held the phone tightly in my hands, and the pain in my heart reached its peak. I paced back and forth in my room, like a trapped beast, unable to find an exit. What am I going to do? I cried out in my heart. I thought back to the little things I had done with my husband, the ordinary yet warm days. We had overcome many difficulties together and shared the joys and sorrows of life together. He was my husband, the person I had vowed to be with for the rest of my life. But I couldn't forget the relationship I had with Alex. It was a passionate love, something I had never experienced in my marriage. The happiness and satisfaction Alex brought me made me feel that there was another possibility in life. Just as I was in the throes of pain, my phone suddenly rang. It was my husband calling. I took a deep breath and, trembling, pressed the answer button. "Lily, you'll be back tomorrow." "I'm ready to welcome you back." My husband's voice was still so gentle and full of anticipation. "Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you." I tried to make my voice sound normal. "What's wrong, Lily? You sound a little strange. Did something bad happen to you?" My husband sensed something was wrong. My heart lurched, and I almost wanted to tell him everything. But the words stuck in my throat. "No, nothing, I'm just tired." After hanging up the phone, I felt a sense of overwhelming guilt. I knew I couldn't keep on hesitating like this. I had to make a decision, no matter how difficult it was. That night, I hardly slept at all. I sat quietly in my room, watching the sky outside my window light up little by little. When the first ray of sunshine shone into the room, I finally made a decision. I picked up my phone and sent Alex a text message. "Alex, thank you for your love, but I have decided to go back to my husband. The feelings we have for each other can only become a beautiful memory. I hope you can also find your own happiness." When I pressed the send button, I felt a mixture of emotions. There was pain, reluctance, and a hint of relief. I knew I had made a difficult decision, but it might be the best choice for everyone. I packed my bags, took one last look at the room that had once filled me with joy and pain, and then turned and left. On the way to the airport, my mood calmed down a lot. I knew that the road ahead was still long, and that I would need time to heal my wounds and take action to make up for what I owed my husband. After arriving at the airport, I checked in and sat in the waiting room waiting to board the plane. Looking at the people coming and going around me, I had mixed feelings. This experience in a foreign country has made me grow up a lot, and it has also made me understand the true meaning of love and responsibility. When the announcement came over the loudspeaker that it was time to board the plane, I got up, dragged my luggage behind me, and walked towards the boarding gate. I knew that this departure would be a new beginning for me. I would try my best to forget the past and return to my old life, loving my husband with all my heart and cherishing our marriage. Although the road ahead may be full of challenges, I believe that as long as I have the courage to face them, I will be able to emerge from the darkness and welcome the new sunshine. After saying goodbye to Alex, I continued to stay in this town for a few days like a walking corpse. Every corner still had remnants of our memories, the narrow alleys, the beautiful beach, the cozy outdoor restaurants. All of them were like sharp knives, stabbing my heart from time to time. But I knew that I had to adjust myself as soon as possible, get back to my old life, and try my best to forget this forbidden love. Finally, I set off on my journey home. The plane slowly landed on familiar ground. Looking out the window at the familiar scenery, I felt no joy whatsoever. I dragged my heavy luggage out of the airport and saw my husband anxiously waiting at the exit. His eyes were full of concern. When he saw me coming, he quickly came up to me, took the luggage from me, and embraced me tightly. "Lily, you're finally back. I've missed you so much." My husband's voice was a little choked with emotion, and at that moment, I felt full of guilt. I hugged him tightly, and tears could not be held back. "I'm sorry, honey, I've worried you," I whispered in his arms. When I returned home, everything was still so familiar. The warm decorations and the familiar scent made me feel the warmth of home. But my heart could never be at peace. The experience in a foreign country was like a heavy stone weighing on my heart. My husband seemed to sense my unease, but he didn't ask any questions. He just silently stayed by my side, giving me endless care and attention. As the days passed, I tried hard to forget Alex and threw myself into my life with my husband. However, fate did not seem to intend to let me off lightly. One day, while packing, I found an unfamiliar envelope. There was no sender's address on the envelope, only my name. An ominous feeling welled up in my heart. After hesitating for a moment, I opened the envelope. Inside the envelope were a few photos, and the content of the photos instantly made me pale. In the photos, Alex and I were intimately together in various corners of the town. Some of us were strolling hand in hand, some of us were sweetly looking at each other in a restaurant, and there were also scenes of us hugging on the beach. Each photo was like a sharp knife, piercing my heart. At the bottom of the photos was a note that said, "Lily, this is just the beginning. If you don't want your husband to see these photos, do as I say. Prepare 500,000 yuan and transfer it to this account. Otherwise, you will suffer the consequences." At the end of the note was a bank account number. I held the photo and the note in my hands, trembling with fear and anger. I knew that this must be the work of the mysterious woman who had used such despicable means to threaten me. I wanted to tell my husband about this immediately, but I was afraid of losing his trust and our marriage. I paced back and forth in my room, constantly thinking about what to do. I couldn't let my husband see these photos, or our marriage would be completely over. But 500,000 yuan was not a small sum for me, and I simply couldn't come up with it in such a short time. Just as I was at a loss, my phone suddenly rang. I picked it up and saw it was an unfamiliar number, and my heart tightened. After a moment of hesitation, I answered the phone. "Lily, did you get the photos?" "What have you decided?" The familiar, cold voice came over the phone. "What do you want? Why are you doing this to me?" I said angrily. "You know exactly what I want. 500,000 yuan is no big deal for your family. As soon as you transfer the money, the photos will disappear and I will leave you alone." The woman's voice was tinged with a hint of triumph. "I don't have that kind of money. This is blackmail," I shouted. "Then don't blame me for being rude. If you don't transfer the money on time, I'll send these photos directly to your husband. Then, let's see how you explain it." The woman hung up after saying that. I held the phone and slumped to the ground, tears streaming down my face again. I didn't know what to do, and despair filled my heart. Just then, I suddenly thought of Alex. Maybe he knew the identity of this woman and could help me solve this problem. With trembling hands, I looked up Alex's phone number and, after a long hesitation, finally dialed the number. After ringing a few times, the phone finally connected. "Lily?" Alex's voice contained a hint of surprise and joy. "Alex, I'm in trouble," I said chokingly, and then told him everything about receiving the photos and being threatened. Alex listened for a while in silence, then said, "Lily, don't worry. I'll help you figure this out. I think I know who this woman is. She's an enemy of mine, and she's probably trying to get back at me this way." Hearing Alex's words, I felt slightly relieved. "Then can you help me solve this problem as soon as possible? I'm really scared of losing my husband," I said anxiously. "I'll do my best, Lily. Don't do anything rash and wait for my news." Alex hung up after saying that. The next few days seemed like years to me, and I anxiously waited for news from Alex every day. My husband seemed to have noticed my unusual behavior, and he asked me many times what was going on, but I made up excuses to get by. Finally, one night, Alex called me. "Lily, I've found out where the woman is and I've talked to her. She agrees not to threaten you anymore, but there's a condition." "What condition?" I asked anxiously. "She wants me to help her with something that's a bit tricky for me, but I'm willing to try for your sake," Alex said. "Alex, thank you. Whatever the condition is, as long as it can solve this problem, I am willing to cooperate," I said gratefully. "Lily, you don't have to thank me. I just don't want to see you get hurt." "Don't worry, I will solve this matter as soon as possible," Alex said and hung up the phone. In the following days, I prayed every day that Alex could successfully solve this matter. I also began to reflect on my own actions and regretted my initial impulsiveness and stupidity. I vowed that if I could get through this, I would cherish my life and never do anything to hurt my husband or my family again. However, things did not go as smoothly as I had hoped. One day, I received another call from the woman. "Lily, Alex doesn't want to help you. He's just stringing you along. You'd better get the money ready, or else you won't be able to bear the consequences," the woman said, her voice full of menace. I listened to the woman's words, and my heart filled with doubt. I didn't know who to believe, Alex or this woman. I called Alex again to ask for clarification. However, the phone kept going unanswered. An ominous feeling suddenly welled up in my heart. Could it be that Alex really deceived me? Just as I was about to despair, my husband suddenly walked into the room. He saw the photo and note in my hand, and his face instantly turned pale. Lily, what is going on? My husband's voice was full of anger and disappointment. I looked at my husband, and tears once again blurred my vision. I didn't know how to explain to him, and I didn't know if our marriage could continue. This unexpected turn of events once again plunged my life into endless darkness, and I seemed to have found no way out. After my husband found the photos and note, the atmosphere at home became extremely oppressive. He looked at me with disappointment and anger in his eyes, and I could only lower my head in shame under his gaze, not knowing how to explain it all. Lily, you'd better give me a reasonable explanation. My husband's voice was cold and low, as if it came from another world. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down, telling him everything about my encounter and acquaintance with Alex and the subsequent threat from the mysterious woman. My husband listened quietly, without any expression on his face, but I could feel a huge storm brewing inside him. So, you were going to keep this from me? My husband asked coldly after hearing everything. Honey, I didn't mean to do it. I was afraid of losing you and our home, I said through tears. I know I was wrong. I really regret it. My husband was silent for a long time, then turned and left the room. I sat there alone, tears streaming down my face, my heart filled with despair. I didn't know if my husband would ever forgive me or if our marriage could continue. Just as I was sinking into endless pain, my phone suddenly rang. It was Alex calling. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Lily, I know you're going through a difficult time right now, but I've found out the woman's real identity, Alex said, his voice tinged with fatigue. Her name is Emma, and she's the ex-wife of a business partner of mine. We had some conflicts in the past, and she's been holding a grudge against me. This time, she used you to get back at me. Hearing Alex's words, my doubts eased slightly. So what are you going to do? I asked. I've already talked to her, asking her to stop threatening you. But she won't listen, and she's even getting worse, Alex said. Lily, don't worry, I won't let her hurt you. But my husband has already found out about all this, and our marriage may be ruined, I said bitterly. Lily, I'm sorry. This is all my fault, Alex said, full of self-blame in his voice. If you want, I can explain everything to your husband and let him know that this is all Emma's plot. I thought about it for a moment and felt that this might be a solution to the problem. Okay, Alex, you do it. But I hope you can explain things clearly and not let the misunderstanding deepen. After hanging up the phone, I sat in the living room, waiting for Alex to arrive. I was both looking forward to him helping me solve the problem and worried that things would get even worse. Soon after, Alex arrived at my house. He sat in the living room with my husband and started talking. I listened nervously from the side, my heart racing. Alex explained to my husband in detail about Emma's situation and her motive for revenge. He admitted that it was his fault that I got into this trouble. My feelings for Lily are genuine, but I know that she is married and I shouldn't have interfered in her life. This time, it was Emma who was behind it all. My husband listened quietly, his expression still serious. What about these photos? How do you explain them? My husband asked, pointing at the photos on the table. Emma hired someone to take these photos, with the aim of blackmailing Lily and getting her to take revenge on me, Alex said. I already have some evidence that can prove what she did. My husband looked at Alex and was silent for a long time. How can I believe what you say? You can investigate, and I will provide all the evidence, Alex said firmly. I just hope you can forgive Lily. She is also a victim. I looked at my husband with pleading eyes. Honey, I really know I was wrong. I promise that I will never do anything to hurt you again. Please believe me and believe Alex's explanation. My husband looked at me and then at Alex and finally sighed. Okay, I will investigate. If what you say is true, I will consider forgiving Lily. But you two must completely sever your relationship. I promise that I will never have any contact with Lily again, Alex said. Hearing my husband's words, a glimmer of hope arose in my heart. Although the matter had not been completely resolved, at least there was a turning point. In the following days, my husband began to secretly investigate Emma's affairs. As for me, I was also trying hard to make up for my mistakes and to regain my husband's trust. I took the initiative to take care of all the housework and showed great care for my husband, hoping to make him feel my sincerity. Finally, after a week, my husband found me. There was a slight softening in his expression. "Lily, I've looked into it, and Alex was telling the truth. That Emma really is up to no good." I felt a surge of emotion, and tears welled up in my eyes again. "Honey, thank you for believing in me. I really appreciate it." "But this incident has sounded an alarm for our marriage," my husband said solemnly. "We must re-examine our relationship and work hard to run our family well." "I know, honey. I will prove my determination with my actions," I said firmly. Since then, my relationship with my husband has gradually eased. Although it will take time to repair our relationship, I believe that as long as we are honest and trust each other, we will be able to regain our former happiness. Alex, as he promised, never contacted me again. Occasionally, I think back to our experience in a foreign country. I feel both regret and gratitude. Regret that our relationship did not work out, and gratitude that this experience has made me grow and appreciate my current life more. As for Emma, she was finally punished for her actions. Alex used legal means to make her pay for her actions. After all the twists and turns, the storm finally subsided. I returned to a peaceful life, going to and from work with my husband every day, enjoying a simple but happy life. I often think of that old town, of Alex's smile, and of the time we spent together. But that's all in the past, and I know that what I have now is truly worth cherishing. After this emotional upheaval, I have a deeper understanding of love and marriage. Love is not just about passion and romance, but also about responsibility and loyalty. Marriage is a commitment, a promise for two people to support each other and walk through life together. I will spend my whole life keeping this promise and cherishing the relationship between my husband and me. The road ahead is still long, and we may encounter various difficulties and challenges. But I believe that as long as we have love and trust in our hearts, we will be able to overcome everything and reach the shore of happiness. After parting with Alex, I returned home with mixed feelings. The once familiar home felt a little strange to me now, and every corner seemed to remind me of the mistakes I had made. I looked at my husband. Although there was still some pain in his eyes, there was also a glimmer of hope, the hope that our lives could return to normal. I began to try hard to get back to my old rhythm of life, trying to fill the void in my heart with busyness. I got up early every day to prepare breakfast for my husband and took care of everything at home, as if this could make up for my past mistakes. My husband also tried hard to cooperate with me, and our communication gradually increased, but that subtle barrier was always there. As the days passed, it seemed that our lives had returned to normal, but I could never find true peace of mind. I often thought about the time I spent with Alex in that foreign town. Those memories were like a beautiful dream, beautiful but not real. I constantly reminded myself to cherish the life I had now and to cherish my husband's forgiveness and love for me. However, life did not seem to intend to let me off lightly. One day, while tidying up the study, I accidentally found a diary belonging to my husband. Curiosity drove me to open it, and the contents made me burst into tears. In the diary, my husband recorded his worries and thoughts after I left home for a trip, as well as his pain and struggles after discovering that I might have betrayed him. He wrote, "I can't believe Lily would do such a thing. I always thought our marriage was unbreakable, but now everything has become so unfamiliar. But I still love her, and I'm willing to give her a chance, hoping that she can truly understand how precious our relationship is." Reading these words, I felt full of guilt and moved. I realized that my husband had suffered so much for our marriage. I decided to work harder to manage our relationship so that he could once again feel my love and loyalty. Since then, I have paid more attention to my husband's preferences and needs, watching his favorite movies with him and listening to him share the joys and sorrows of his work. We also signed up for a couples growth course together, where we had in-depth exchanges of each other's inner thoughts and learned to better understand and tolerate each other. During this process, I also began to reflect on my own growth process. I recalled my experience in a foreign country, which was not only a romantic entanglement, but also an opportunity for self-growth. I realized that I had neglected my own needs and feelings in my marriage, focusing all my energy on maintaining superficial harmony while neglecting deep communication and emotional exchange with my husband. I began to try to express my thoughts and feelings, and no longer suppress myself as I had done in the past. When I encountered troubles, I would actively confide in my husband, and he would patiently listen and give me support and advice. Our relationship gradually became closer and more stable. At the same time, I also had new plans for my future. I decided to pick up my once-loved hobby of painting and signed up for a painting course. Painting gave me a new way to express myself and a great sense of satisfaction. I showed my husband my work, and he was very surprised and proud of my progress. However, just as our lives were gradually getting back on track, an unexpected piece of news shattered the peace. I received a call from Alex's friend Tom. Tom told me that after we had parted ways, Alex had been unable to accept my departure and had fallen into deep sorrow. He had started drinking heavily and his life had become a mess. Hearing this news, a sharp pain shot through my heart. Although I had already decided to return to my family, I still had a special feeling for Alex. After a moment's hesitation, I decided to give Alex a call and persuade him to pull himself together. When the call connected, Alex's voice sounded very haggard. "Lily, is that you?" There was a hint of surprise and expectation in his voice. "Alex, it's me. I heard what happened to you, and you can't go on like this." I tried to keep my voice calm. "You're a wonderful person, and you deserve to get your life back." Alex was silent for a while, and then he said, "Lily, I know I shouldn't bother you anymore, but I really can't forget you. Without you, I feel like a zombie." I felt a pang of sadness, but I said firmly, "Alex, we both need to move on. I have returned to my husband, and I hope you can also find your own happiness. You must believe that time will heal everything." After my persuasion, Alex finally promised me that he would try to change his life situation. After hanging up the phone, I felt a sense of relief, and at the same time, I was more determined to return to my family. As time passed, my husband and I grew closer. We have overcome many difficulties and challenges together. Our marriage has become more mature and stable, and I have learned how to find a balance between love and responsibility. Looking back on this experience, I am aware of the mistakes I made, but I am also grateful for the growth I have experienced. It has taught me the value of love and the responsibility of marriage, and how to love myself and others better. I believe that in the future, no matter what difficulties we encounter, my husband and I will be able to support each other and create our own happy life together. And that emotional entanglement in a foreign country will always be a unique memory in my life, reminding me to cherish what I have in front of me.